Hi, here's my last track guide for the first map pack in TMT. It's on the duo map Breaking Bad by Curdy and Thompson, and the world record here is 43.57 by BX3 Flyer. My best time is 43.62, so I'm 500 behind. As usual, I will go through the replay slowly for each turn to try and give some tips on how to drive faster and perhaps also safer. After that, I will play the replay in normal speed as well. Okay, let's begin. So, the map starts with a simple turn to the right, which you want to take as tidily as possible. Then follows a downhill, which you want to drive over diagonally to keep your speed. And following that, we will drive over the top of a quarter pipe. Here, you have to make sure that you don't go too close to the side, because then you will get a bump and lose most of your speed. Following that, we have a couple of seconds here with full speed until the next turn. And next turn is going to be a downhill followed by a drift to the left here. Here you want to don't start your drift too early here, because then you will be in the wrong gear and you will drop down in speed. So start your drift around here instead, and then try to time the drift so that you pass it around here. If necessary, tap the brake to adjust your line. For best results, you can hit the border on the side here, and if you hit it just right, you can give you a shorter line as well. But the important part is to avoid the slowdown at first, and then get as much speed as you can out of the turn, because after this we have quite a long stretch, and entering this stretch with a lot of speed will save a lot of time. So let's play through that. Alright, so the next turn can be a bit tricky, as it requires you to drive over some borders here, and also you're kind of blind doing this drift. You can go for a pretty short line here, as I did, or you can go for a wider line here, and thus get more speed out of the turn, upcoming turn. That is probably a better alternative if you want to go for consistency, which I definitely recommend in a match scenario. But as you can see, I went for a shorter line here, and I drove very risky lines here over the two borders, very close to crashing, but I managed to survive somehow. So that saved me some time, but it's very risky, so I would recommend taking that wider line instead. Alright, so upcoming turn is another somewhat blind turn, as you need to time the upcoming drift here correctly, so that you enter the next part of the map in a good way. If you don't do the drift here properly, then you will lose time later on. So the best way is just make one small drift, and then don't release your acceleration at all here. Again, I adjusted my line a bit here with another tap on the brake, as I usually do, but I did hit the turn decently enough, so I didn't lose too much time on it. Then we have a transition to the blue floor with a quick passage here through some quarter pipes. The goal is to maintain your speed through this section. This can be pretty hard unless you hit that drift I just mentioned before well. So you can drive over these quarter pipes with your inner two wheels without losing your grip, as seen here. And then do the same on the other one as well, so that you don't glide too much to the left here on the grass. Alright, so then we will go back up on the road again. As you drive over it, wait a bit with braking to extend your drift, and try to get a good line close to the wall with a lot of speed out of turn. I again went for a pretty short line here. For a safer line, you can take a bit wider of a turn, and then it's easier to get more speed out of this. That is actually important, very important, that you get a lot of speed out of this turn for the next turn after this. Okay, so we'll go through this quickly. Alright, so then we have another transition, this time a pretty short one, followed by an uphill drift. So the more speed you have entering this turn, the easier it is to do well. So you want to let the natural drift you get from the transition here do most of the work, and that's only possible if you have a lot of speed from the previous turn. So basically, try to wait as long as possible and then tap the brake once to maintain my speed through this turn. So yeah, just make that drift that you get from the transition do most of the work, and then just a small tap on the brake to extend your drift slightly. Alright, so then we have another long stretch here, and upcoming here we have a pretty tricky part of the map, where you can decide if you want to take a path on the left or on the right side of a pole. But first we have this small uphill here. For best results, you want to go a lot to the right, so that you don't lift up too much with your vehicle, and also get a shorter line for the next turn. This can be a bit tricky, and you can get a no drift here as well. So for a safer strategy, I would recommend going a bit more to the left here, so that you get so that you lift up a bit with your vehicle, and thus you will land into the drift. So that's a bit safer to take the turn. Alright, so let's just go through that. I did go more to the left here, so the world record actually caught up to me. I was ahead at this point, so I went for a bit of a longer line here because of that. But I would definitely recommend doing that in matches at least. Okay, so then we have the pole here, which you can take either on the left or on the right side. I'm not sure what is fastest here, but I definitely think it's safer to go on the outside. And if it is slower, then it can't be by much, because the world record also goes outside here on the left, and so do I as well. In matches, consistency is more important than setting a fast time. So my recommendation in matches is definitely to go outside of the pole. So basically, try to go as close around it as possible. As you can see, I went a bit too wide here, so the world record caught up to me here as well. And just keep your speed as much as possible here through this turn. So yeah. Alright, following that, we have a right turn over the blue section here. And then we will go back up on the road, followed by a drift to the right. So for this turn, try to align yourself as much to the left as possible. Then start your drift just before you go up on the transition here. So start it around there to pass this turn. And then you want to try and keep yourself to the left as much as possible here. I did not do that too good actually. The world record went much wider here to the left, and thus got a better line for this turn here, because this turn is pretty tightly to the right, so you need a good line, and I did not have that. So the world record had a shorter line here and could steer to the left earlier than me for this turn as well. So lost some time here on the world record. Okay, so then we have a downhill before the last turn of the track. Here, start your drift pretty early with just a small tap on the brake, and then try to keep yourself to the left in this turn, because this is a pretty long turn to the left, this last turn of the track. And then you go up over on the blue section again, and just land into a drift. And you can adjust your line here if needed with brake. Also, if you have too much speed here, you can miss the finish line actually. You can go too much to the right. So make sure that you don't have too much speed as well. If necessary, just release your acceleration here, so to make sure that you don't miss the finish line. Alright, so that concludes my track guide. I hope it could help you some. I will now play the replay in normal speed as well. So yeah, thanks for watching.